Very happy to be here to clarify what McGill considers to be non-thesis masters and thesis masters. I'm Josephine Nalbantoglu. I'm the Dean of Graduate and Post Doctoral Studies. So all graduate students are under me, if you want to look at it that way. So we have over 11,000 graduate students, both at the master's level and at the doctoral level. Think about the master's programs that students can participate in universities. They're usually two different types, and they're called different things in different countries. So I'll just give you a little bit of vocabulary. At McGill, we call our master's non-thesis or thesis. I mean, that's pretty self-evident. In the UK, these are called taught masters, which means just courses, or research masters. In the UK, it was mainly taught masters for many, many years, but they've started doing research masters. In the US, they're called coursework-based masters. So what differentiates them is that in one case, there's a lot of research, and in the other case, it's mainly coursework. So the students take lots of courses, and they're developing expertise. So they're developing really a lot of breadth in their field. The courses cover many, many different aspects of their field, and they're usually credit-based, anywhere between 30 credits to 45 credits. In the research masters, there are many fewer courses. At McGill, it can vary between 3 courses to 6 or 7 courses, because the bulk of the time is spent doing research and producing the thesis. There are other aspects that are different between the two. So if a student is doing research, they're working very closely with a supervisor, and they're asking specific questions. So they're going in depth about a question that really interests them and putting their own stamp on the discovery process. In the coursework-based masters, the non-thesis, there is no thesis, but the student can choose to do a research project nevertheless. So it's a smaller project. They still work with a supervisor, but it's the amount of work that's required is much less in terms of the research aspect of it. Basically, they have to know what they want as a career, like how they see themselves. So if they want to do a lot of research, they're very inquisitive, they want to explore their own ideas, they want to do research and development, then the expertise that they get in the research masters, in the thesis masters, will provide them the skills necessary for going on to either research and development career or an academic career, because the research masters, the thesis masters, prepares them for a doctoral degree, for a PhD. Whereas if they want to have just more knowledge about a specific field, which is the course-based masters, the non-thesis masters, they can apply that knowledge directly, but they're not really undertaking any research questions in their job. The student really has to know what they want and what their skills are, because the one thing that we haven't discussed yet about the two masters is that doing a research master's, a thesis master's, means that the student also likes to read a lot and write a lot, because producing that thesis requires a lot of writing and a lot of good writing. So if a student just cannot see themselves sitting in front of a computer writing pages and pages, because a thesis is about 60 to 70 pages, whereas the project report is probably 20 pages of very straightforward and very dry prose, let's say. It's not the same for the master's thesis. So the student has to know what they're good at. If they think that they really need to go into depth about a subject, then it's the research masters. If they want to know a lot about a subject, the breadth of it, then it's a non-thesis masters. At McGill, we have many different types of programs in many different departments. Some departments insist on having a project, others don't. And some departments might have a master's non-thesis with project and a master's non-thesis without project. So we have a lot of flexibility. The student has to just go through the curriculum for each department and choose what is most appropriate for them. I would recommend with project, because if you're going to a university and you're doing a master's, you want to get a sense of what doing research is. So you're still working with a supervisor and advisor, so you're getting that expert advice from a McGill professor, and you're trying out your ideas. And I think that's worthwhile. It can do multiple types of projects. If we think about it, a lot of times the supervisor might put the non-thesis master's student with, for example, a doctoral student. So the non-thesis master's student might develop a new method in conjunction with the doctoral student to help them in their project. They can test a new assay for the professor's laboratory. They can do field studies. And in some of our non-thesis masters, we also have internships, which means that the project is really carried out outside of McGill. Those are more difficult to have with industrial partners, but we can have a few of those available every year. A student who's doing an internship with an industrial partner, for example, that partner could be identified through the university, or it might be an industrial company that the student already knows and is aware of. So then the university would have to validate the work that's going to be done in that company, because at the end of the project, there's still a report that's written. So, and it's McGill professor who's going to be grading that report and assessing that report. So if the student is going to an internship, the framework is set at the beginning and what they're going to accomplish and what their goals are. So McGill will be involved in helping the student set up that internship, whether it's done directly through McGill or through the student. I think if we look at what employers want in a student, I think a lot of them are really focusing on students who are motivated and students who have the drive and who have the persistence. So in both cases, whether they're doing a master's non-thesis or master's with thesis, the persistence is there, right? Someone has a goal, spends the time, and achieves the goal. So that's the basic asset that having a master's gives you for the employer. It means that the student can take on a project and accomplish it successfully. Depends on, again, where the employer's goals are. If they're not very research oriented, they just want someone who knows the field, who knows the literature, has acquired the knowledge through the courses, and can apply that knowledge. So I think there's no question that both of them are useful. I don't think the non-thesis master's is valued any less than a thesis master's. They just lead to different types of careers. And that's why the student has to really think about what they want to do in life. Whereas if it's a company that doesn't do much research and development, but they want to implement what other people have produced in the field, so they want someone who has the knowledge, who can go and read the literature and knows how to implement solutions developed by others. So that would be more the master's non-thesis. So they both have values, and it really depends on what the industrial employer demands. And, when you think about the decision that the student's going to make, some of them, despite everything that we say, think, reflect, think some more, trying to decide what you want to do in your life. It's very hard sometimes to plan 10, 15, 20 years ahead. And most students want to leave all doors open. So if they're going to do a master's, should they be doing a thesis master's in case they want to do a doctoral degree, a PhD? or should they be doing a non-thesis master's, and does that close all doors to them? And I'm of the view that doing either of the masters will open doors for the doctoral program. And we've had that instance at McGill where if you've got a non-thesis master's, that you will be considered favorably for a doctoral program, because it means that you've done all the theoretical background to your degree. You almost have a head start in terms of the courses, because we discussed whether the courses are the same in both, and a lot of times the courses are the same. But in the research masters, you also learn more theoretical courses about methodology, analysis, writing skills. So that's what's really promoted in the thesis masters. And that's what you're probably the student who's doing a non-thesis is lacking, but they can acquire that during the first year of the doctoral period, the PhD. So both of these masters can lead to PhD. There's no question in my mind. This is really a major decision for your career. I would recommend that a student think about it. We have something that we're developing at McGill called the Individual Development Plan. And what we're trying to tell all students is to take time to think, to reflect on what is important for them, what their values are, and where they want to direct their efforts in their career. So a student should really know what they want to do in the career. What we're trying to say is that it shouldn't just be default. You know, I finished my bachelor's, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Let me just sign up for a master's. That's not the right way of approaching this, because you should be choosing something that is of interest to you and that you're going to be passionate about. And that's what's going to make you differentiate amongst your peers towards those employers, because they'll see that you've thought about what you wanted to do, and that's why you've taken a master's degree.